mine, Steve Howe, who you will know, Steve Howe from Yes, any of you prog rockers there. Steve contacted me and he said, can you get up to New Jersey? Because I've been contacted by Scott Chinery, who has this most amazing guitar collection, over 7,000 guitars, and he wants an album made of at least this selection of his guitars. Not going to be able to do all of them, obviously. I think in the end, we recorded about 60 instruments in the end. But the idea was that he brought Steve on board to play on it and also produce it. But he wanted to get different guitar players to play on it, and Steve said that he should get me to play some of the archtops. So when we met Scott at his house in Toms River, we kind of sat down in this amazing room full of the most incredible guitars, and we just started to play. And he liked what Steve and I were doing so much that he said, look, I've changed my mind. He said, I'm not going to get a different guitar player for every track. He says, I want you to record all of the guitars. That's what we ended up doing, and this was the result, Masterpiece Guitars. And it was partly Scott was inspired by Steve Howe. Because Steve brought out a very well-known book of his guitar collection. There was also a famous Japanese collector that brought out this incredible book of guitars, mandolins and banjos. And he wanted to do something similar but also record it. And Scott had heard the album that David Grisman and I had made, the Tone Poems 2, and said, well, this would be really great if we could do something like that. So after quite a while, because we met about 2 years before we actually went into record. No, a year before we went into recording, because Tone Poems had only just come out. That's right, and he'd heard it. And I think this was one of the inspirations. So we got into a studio, and what Steve and I did was we just spent a lot of time with instruments and finding instruments that worked well together. Again, this has got a little, not quite as detailed kind of brochure, but you'll see here, let me just hold this up. There's a little photo of Steve and I in the studio. Again, I'll get you a good copy of this photo so you can see it. But that wasn't all of the guitars. That was just a few of them we had. And then inside, of course, we've got actually a really good thing, because whenever I soloed, it would tell you what guitar I was playing at any given time. One of the things was Scott then, because he had this blue guitar that Jimmy D'Acquisto had made him, he'd commissioned from him. Jimmy D'Acquisto made this blue guitar, then Jimmy died shortly after that. And as a tribute to Jimmy D'Acquisto, he wanted to commission a number of guitar builders, luthiers, to make guitars that were blue. Of course, that's inspired by Picasso's painting, the blue guitars. So we've got, let me have a quick look here. I've got to have a count now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18. I think there's 19 guitars there. So I played this tune, Blue Bossa, and I did all the accompanying part on Jimmy D'Acquisto's guitar, on the Centura. The first solo was on the Hollenbeck, then the Monteleone, Gibson Super 400, that was specially made for Scott, a Grimes, a Bozo, Nickerson, Linda Manza, Cummins, Megas, Triggs, Buscarino, D'Aleco, Zeidler, Lacey, Fender D'Acquisto, a Walker, a Campione, and finished up with a Benedetto. And it was interesting to listen to the guitars. And one of the things I did, and I did it on Tone Poems as well, is every guitar has its own sweet spot. So I would spend ages with a guitar just going, just finding out where that spot was on the guitar. Because some of those guitars were absolutely amazing. Some of them were very, very good. And there were two that were not quite so good. So the same thing with on Tone Poems, where you just have to get the guitar to sound as good as possible. And there's a way of really doing that. You just find the kind kind of the difference you get, how you hit the string, the kind of pick you use, or whether you play fingerstyle. So Steve and I spent hours and hours with Scott's curator, just going through guitars, and then he would get he would have someone there as well that would set them up if anything needed to be adjusted, etc. So we finally, we made notes and we said, right, these guitars will be good together, these guitars will be good together. And the interesting thing is, I mean, there's guitars there, like there's the Gretsch Penguin, which is the white one, which Steve is playing on, holding there. I don't think Steve actually played the Penguin. I played it on one of the tracks, but I can't remember. I need to have a look at the notes again. So whatever we played, the guitar kind of dictated to us the kind of music we were going to play. So we wrote some of the material ourselves. There was the two teardrop guitars. There was the obviously with the famous D'Angelico one. We did a tune called Two Teardrops. Then I had some of the Gibson archtop guitars, the L5s, and I came up with a I Got Rhythm type thing of No Pedestrians. With about 4 or 5 guitars, we did Smile. Charlie Chaplin wrote that. One of my tunes called La Quista, where I played some of these little tiny instruments here. I don't even know what some of those are called, and with a kind of South American feel. Thank Heavens for Little Girls, I forgot about that. Yeah, Blue Bossa. Yeah, we did a thing called, Steve did that, called Tailpiece. And The Sunshine of Your Smile, again, that's an old tune, obviously went with the guitars. Goofus was one with Steve, because Steve plays great pedal steel and lap steel. Yeah, so, and one of them was called Harpnosis. What we had, I don't know when it's on here, we had all these harp guitars. Let's see if I can find it. So you can see there's I'm holding the teardrop there, that's Scott Chinery in the middle, he's holding a Larson. And what's Steve holding? That's the Grady guitar, Gibson. Yeah, so we had all these harp guitars. We had a Larson mandolin, a Dyer Symphony harp guitar. I think that's the one we called the Frankenstein because it had sort of necks all over the place. The Larson plain harp guitar, Gibson U style, the one I showed you, the Larson Tree of Life. There's another one, a Bowman harp guitar, a Dyer harp guitar, and the Linda Manza Picasso. But this is the Picasso number 2 because Linda Manza made 2 of them. She made the first one for Pat Metheny, and you would have seen Pat Metheny playing it, and then she made this second one, which I played. And basically, Steve and I said, what are we going to do? How do we tune these? And we thought, well, we can tune them however way we want, really. So we just started tuning them up and coming up with ideas. And first of all, we put down 2 tracks of 2 of the harp guitars, and just very atmospheric. And then we just started adding from there. And I don't know whether it was good or not. It was certainly atmospheric. At times it sounded like an old grand piano being thrown out of a window, I think, because there were so many strings. I don't know how many strings were involved in that. It must have been hundreds. And also a bit of a nightmare to tune the things up. The other thing that we did was we tried lots of different microphones. We used some very old microphones as well on the old guitars. And this guitar here, I need to get something done to this because I haven't played this guitar in a long time, and I want to record it again, but it's got all kinds of rattles on it, but it needs a little bit of TLC before I do that.